Welcome everyone. This is the Masterclass. My name is Patrick Nazareth, and I have been teaching for almost 30 years now. I hope to remove any doubts that you might have regarding your studies. So let's get right to it, shall we? A little bit on the background of Vikram Seth. He is a living contemporary poet of today. He was born on June the 20th in 1952 in Calcutta, which is of course the capital of West Bengal. He wrote a novel of verse, in other words, a complete novel, but written in the format of poetry, The Golden Gate. He also wrote another novel called A Suitable Boy. Let's look at the poem then, shall we? The first stanza. Once upon a time a frog croaked away in Bingle Bog. Every night from dusk to dawn, he croaked on and on and on. Other creatures loathed his voice, but alas, they had no choice. And the crass cacophony bled out from the sumac tree, at whose foot frog each night minstreled on till morning night. Here we are told about a frog who stays in a place called Bingle Bog. When night fell, he started singing, or in other words, he thought he was singing, but we know frogs cannot sing, so he was croaking. He went on and on and on. Look at the spelling over here, A-W-N. This actually is when you are feeling sleepy, you yawn, you do that is Y-A-W-N. So basically his singing was such that it was preventing them from sleeping. So they had nothing else to do but yawn. Okay? They had no choice because they were also residents of that locality. They had to sit, they had to stand, or whatever they were doing, they had to listen to the frog every night from under the sumac tree where he lived. He kept on with what he thought was singing. The next stanza. Neither stones, nor prayers, nor sticks, insults or complaints or bricks, still the frog's determination to display his heart's elation. But one night a nightingale, in the moonlight cold and pale, perched upon the sumac tree, casting forth her melody. Dumbstruck sat the gaping frog, and the whole admiring bog stared towards the sumac, rapt. So, look, they tried to stop this frog from singing. How did they stop him? Throwing stones at him, begging him, please stop, throwing sticks at him. But no matter what they did, whether they insulted him, they complained to him, or they even threw bricks at him, could stop the frog from singing. He needed to sing in order to show how happy he was. He didn't realize, or even if he realized, he did not care about the problems his voice was causing to the other inhabitants of that locality. But one night, a nightingale is a bird, as you're well aware, which we call the bulbul in Hindi, came to that same sumac tree, sat down on one of its branches, and like a theatre performer, the moon was out at that time, so the light was shining on her, and she began to sing. When she sang so beautifully that even the frog was dumbstruck. He couldn't speak at all, he couldn't sing at all, because he was listening to her song, which was so beautiful that the other inhabitants of the bog also looked up towards the sumac tree, and they were lost in her voice. The next para, or rather the next stanza. And when she had ended, clapped, ducks had swum and herons waded to her as she serenaded, and a solitary loon wept beneath the summer moon. Toads and teals and tiddlers captured by her voice cheered on enraptured, bravo, too divine and call. So the nightingale once more, quite unused to such applause, sang till dawn without a pause. You see, when somebody is doing something that you would like to see, what is a natural impulse? You go close to them, right? So the nightingale was singing, ducks swam towards her, herons waded towards her, and different animals tried to get as close to her as possible to hear her song without interruption, to listen to the beauty of her voice. Some, like the loon, was so captivated by the beauty that this loon burst into tears. Tears of joy, obviously, but tears. Okay? And the rest of the inhabitants, They were crying out, they were applauding, they were saying bravo, they were saying encore. Encore means once again. So the nightingale obliged because she was not used to people who were admiring her so much. So she continued singing from dusk till dawn. From the nightfall, from her first song, she kept on singing till the break of dawn. Next night, when the nightingale shook her head and twitched her tail, closed an eye and fluffed her wing, and had cleared her throat to sing, she was startled by a croak. Sorry, was that you who spoke? She inquired when the frog hopped towards her from the bog. Yes, the frog replied, you see, I'm the frog who owns this tree. In this bog I've long been known for my splendid baritone. And of course, I wield my pen for bog trumpet now and then. The day passed. The next night, the nightingale got again ready to sing. And what do we do when we have to go to a party or when we are going someplace? We wear good clothes, we dress up well, we make sure your clothes are ironed. Similarly, the nightingale knew that she was going to sing for somebody. So she tried to preen herself. She fluffed her wing, she shook her head, she twitched her tail. She was getting ready to sing to an audience. And just as about she was about to sing, she was interrupted by a croak. You know, like somebody says, cough. So she turned. Who was that? It was the frog. So the frog introduced himself. He said, listen, I own the tree on which you are singing. I myself have been known to sing very, very well, and people listen to me when I sing. And I also write for the paper of this locality, the Bog Trumpet. Did you like my song? Not too bad, but far too long. The technique was fine, of course, but it lacked a certain force. Oh, the nightingale confessed, greatly flattered and impressed that a critic of such note had discussed her art and throat. I don't think the song's divine, but oh well, at least it's mine. So here we see how the nightingale asked the frog hesitatingly, did you like my song? And the frog is like, okay, yes, it was nice, it was good, but there was something lacking in it. The technique was good, but could have been better. And the nightingale, instead of understanding that the frog was trying to play with her, manipulate her emotions, was impressed that somebody such high standing in the bog, person who wrote for the newspaper, a person who sang every night, was willing to give her advice. So she was like, okay, sorry that we didn't like it that much, but at least it was mine. Continuing on, that's not much to boast about, said the heartless frog. Without proper training such as I, and few others can supply, you'll remain a mere beginner, but with me you'll be a winner. Dearest frog, the nightingale breathed, this is a fairy tale, and you are Mozart in disguise, come to earth before my eyes. So the frog understands that the nightingale needs to be praised. She needs to hear people talk well about her. And he plays on that emotion and he says, listen, it's your song, but it's not much to boast about. If you let me help you out, and maybe a few others, I can help you raise your song even better. Today people are applauding you. Tomorrow it'll be even more people, even more applause, even more fame, even more praise. If you don't allow me to do that, you will remain a beginner. Now the nightingale is flattered. And she is like, okay, you must be Mozart in disguise. And Mozart was a great musician. So if somebody who's very good at something offers to teach you something, it's an honor, right? She did not know that the frog was a nobody. She just knew that he represented himself as somebody who is very, very good at what he does. And she believes that he's like an angel come to help her with her song. You see, this particular poem is a bit like the people in our life. When we are young, sometimes we get into wrong company. People appear to us like the frog. We think they're very, very good people, that they will help us out. But just like the frog, they will lead us astray. They will make us do things that we shouldn't have done. They will lead us away from things that we need to be doing. Instead of growing up and being the best that we can be, we are sometimes led down ways and paths that we shouldn't go to. And that is why this poem is basically a way of warning us and other people that listen, not everybody who represents themselves as good, as great, are actually that good or actually that great. Not somebody who you might think is like really, really cool is not actually that cool. Well, I charge a modest fee. Oh, but it won't hurt, you'll see. Now the nightingale, inspired, flushed with confidence and fired with both art and adoration, sang and was a huge sensation. Animals from miles around flocked towards the magic sound, and the frog, with great precision, counted heads and charged admission. Here we see how the frog tells the nightingale, listen, I will help you out, but I will take some money for helping you out. I will charge you fees. The nightingale is like, okay, but I don't have any money. How do I give it to you? The frog reassured her, don't worry, I will take care of everything. So the nightingale continued to sing, and this time she sang even happier. The frog was telling her she's a great person and she's a good singer, and people were coming from miles around to hear her because her fame had spread. Not through the frog, through the other people who had heard her, but she did not know that. She believed everything the frog told her. So these animals came from miles around, and everybody who came from far, the frog got hold of them and said, listen, you have to pay a fee if you want to listen to the nightingale. And they paid up. Though next morning it was raining, he began her vocal training. But I can't sing in this weather. Come, my dear, we'll sing together. Just put on your scarf and sash. Coo, ooh, ah, go-ash, go-ash. So the frog and nightingale journeyed up and down the scale for 6 hours till she was shivering, and her voice was hoarse and quivering. Now, the next morning, the frog tells the nightingale, it's time for you to start your training. Now, we know that every time you cannot train, the conditions have to be right. So it is raining, it is cold, it is probably windy. And in the rain, in the wind, in the breeze, the frog enjoys them. The frog enjoys himself, but not the nightingale. But the frog was having nothing of it. Listen, put on your scarf, put on your sash, in other words, dress warmly, come out and let's practice. So he led her up and down the scale. What is a scale? You know, like we say sa re ga ma pa da ni sha, that is a scale, or do re mi fa sol la ti do, that is also a scale. One is a scale in English, one is a scale in India. Okay, so for 6 solid hours, they practiced and they practiced. And what happened to the poor nightingale? She was shivering with the cold and her voice was beginning to break. This was what the frog wanted all along. He simply wanted to exploit her for her talent, and he wanted no rival to his song, which is where we again think of people in our lives, people who are not that important but who seem very important. They appear to be doing you a favor, but in reality, they are only setting things right for themselves. Though subdued and sleep deprived, in the night her throat revived, and the sumac tree was bowed with a breathless, titled crowd. Owl of Sandwich, Duck of Kent, Mallard and my Lady Trent, Martin, Cardinal Mephisto, and the Coot of Monte Cristo. Ladies with tiaras glittering in the intervals sat twittering, and the frog observed them glitter with a joy both sweet and bitter. So the whole day she had been practicing for 6 solid hours, remember, but when night came, the nightingale revived. She saw the audience that had come for her. And so many people, so many birds came to see her that the trees, the branches of the sumac tree began to bend under their weight. Who was there? Everybody you could think of. Title people, like the Owl of Sandwich. These are actually plays on actual people. There's an Earl of Sandwich who stays in England. He's royalty. So what the poet is trying to tell us that everybody who is anyone, from the highest to the lowest, came to hear the nightingale sing. And so many of them came that the very branches of the tree began to bend under them. And during the interval, remember, ladies come with jewelry, right? Whenever they go anywhere. And they had tiaras. What is a tiara? A tiara is a band which you wear around your head. Okay? So the frog observed this, the joy that he was feeling. He was feeling both sweet and bitter. Why? He was happy that so many people came. Why? Because he would be able to charge them admission, more money for him. And he was bitter because no one ever came to hear him sing. Instead, he had to listen to insults and complaints. Continuing on, every day the frog who'd sold her songs for silver tried to scold her. You must practice even longer till your voice, like mine, grows stronger. In the second song last night, you got nervous in mid-flight. And my dear, lay on more trills. Audiences enjoy such frills. You must make your public happier. Give them something sharper, snappier. We must aim for better billings. You still owe me 60 shillings. So now we see that the frog is making money off her. He had sold her for silver. It's like betraying a confidence. So the reference here is to Jesus Christ, who was betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. Similarly, the frog is betraying the nightingale. He's taking advantage of her singing to make money for himself. And he's behind her. Practice, practice, practice. He's giving her an example why she needs to practice, because he points out to her, listen, in the second song, your voice, you suddenly got nervous and it didn't come out quite right. So that should not be happening. You must trill. In other words, you must, make your voice go higher and higher and higher. And like the more higher you go, the better you sing. People are going to admire you. They like all that. They want your songs to be sharper, better, snappier. Something that makes them dance with joy. If you can do that, we can aim for better billings. In other words, we can get more money out of them. Because remember, you still owe me 60 shillings. Now see, not only is he taking money from the bird, but he is also telling her that she still owes him more. So you can see how this bird is being exploited. And continuing on the theme which we discussed, people will try and exploit you. We must be clever enough not to be exploited by it. Day by day the nightingale grew more sorrowful and pale. Night on night her tired song zipped and trilled and bounced along, till the birds and beasts grew tired at her voice so uninspired. And the ticket office gross crashed, and she grew more morose, for her ears were now addicted to applause quite unrestricted, and to sing into the night all alone gave no delight. So here we have the frog selling the nightingale's song to people through the night and through the day, forcing her to practice louder and louder and not allowing her to even sleep. Result? Her song, just so full of beauty, so full of joy, so full of happiness, began to sound mechanical, began to sound repetitive, began to sound uninspired. So when that happened, people began to listen less and less to her. Result? The frog began to get less and less money. The nightingale began to get less and less applause, and that made her more and more sad. Because now she had grown used to the applause of people. She was used to people clapping for her. She was used to people telling her, look, you sing very, very well. Give us another song. And she loved to sing into the night. But now she found herself singing to no one, because everyone was tired of the way she had started singing. Now the frog puffed up with rage. Brainless bird, you're on the stage. Use your wits and follow fashion. Puff your lungs out with your passion. Trembling, terrified to fail, blind with tears, the nightingale heard him out in silence, tried, puffed up, burst away, and died. The frog is angry, he's losing money, right? So he takes it out on the bird. He's telling her, you are on the stage. You have to use what God has given you. Use your wits, use your brains. You have to be fashionable. You have to fill up your lungs, and you really have to sing loud. And the nightingale heard him quietly, and she's trembling. She doesn't want to fail. So she takes a deep breath, and she's crying, and she tries to sing as loud as possible, but she burst away, and she died. Said the frog, I tried to teach her, but she was a stupid creature. Far too nervous, far too tense, far too prone to influence. Well, poor bird, she should have known that your song should be your own. That is why I sing with panache. Ku a ash, Gouache, gouache. And the foghorn of the frog blared unrivaled through the bog. Now see, the nightingale is dead. And what is the frog doing? His farewell speech? He says, listen, I tried to teach her. She was basically stupid. She was nervous. She was tense. She was far too prone to influence. In other words, she should not have listened. The irony is here, she listened to him. And he knew he manipulated her into that. And he knows exactly what he did to her. And he says himself, she should not have listened. Well, poor bird, she should have known. She should have known. What she should have known? That your song must be your own. Which, if you remember, is what the nightingale said in the very first instance when she met the frog. At least, if nothing else, it is my song. And so the frog says, listen, my song is mine. And that is why I sing at the top of my lungs. Everybody, whether they like me or not interested. So the frog continued to swing, and there was no one to rival him, and we are back where we started. The foghorn of the frog. It's a bit like the horns that you hear on the street. They blare in your ear, and they are loud, and they're harsh, and there's nothing of music around them. So the frog continues to sing, now that he has killed off his main rival, the nightingale. So what we must try to remember is that we should never be influenced by anybody and lose sight of who we actually are, because each one of us is a unique human being. Each one of us is good at what we do, and we should never allow anyone to tell us that we are bad at something or good at something. Perhaps we are good at something, perhaps we are bad at something. If we are good at something, we try to make it even better. If we are bad at something, we try and remove that. But we try and listen to a good many people, not to one person who might be trying to influence our lives in a way that is good for them, but bad for us. So, what are the themes that run through the frog and the nightingale? Firstly, exploitation. How the frog exploited the nightingale, forcing her to sing more and more, collecting more and more money. Psychological abuse, where you're told so many times that, listen, you are useless, you are useless, you are useless, you almost begin to believe it, but you are not useless. But if somebody keeps on telling you you're useless, you're useless, you're useless, you might just stop. Don't. Naivete. This is where we believe everything somebody tells us. And we should not be naive. We should listen, yes, no doubt, but we should have our own idea of what we are doing, whether it is right or wrong. And lastly, the destructive impact of criticism. Remember, criticism is always of two types, constructive and destructive. Something which tears you down, which tells you you're useless, you're no good, is destructive. Somebody who tells you, listen, you could have done this better if you had done this. That is constructive criticism. Because not only are they pointing out your problems, they're also giving you solutions. So these are the main themes which run through the poem. So that's it then. I hope I have been of help to you. If you think I have, please remember to like, subscribe and share, because there are going to be people out there who would need our help. Thank you for watching.